CD was a great way for you to save your money because you were able to put your money away for a certain amount of time. I've seen CDs go. Happy holidays. Please enjoy this live as we talk about ways to save, ways to level up our money, and so forth. As we're getting ready to go into the year of 2026, we want to still look at ways that we can earn and we can save some money. So, without further ado, let's continue discussing different types of accounts that we can use to basically save some money. From 6 months to 1 year to a year and a half to 2 years, and you could basically put that money away and have an amount of time. But while the CD was there, your money grew. Now with CDs, especially when you get them from credit union, that's a great place to get a CD from because a lot of these credit unions, other than the traditional banks, what they allow you to do, they allow you to borrow against that CD. So if you had a CD, let's just say Bank of America, I'm just throwing a bank out there, and maybe if you wanted to withdraw that money before a certain amount of time, I'm sure the bank will probably give you a penalty. But if you open up a CD and you put it in a credit union account, the credit union will allow you to borrow against it, make payments, get a penalty. So in other words, you're at the same time, it's like you're getting the interest rate, the high interest rates. You're able to have access to your money, borrow that money, and still gain at the same time without paying any high penalties or any dues. So a CD, that's a bonus, is also another great account that I think a lot of people should have. Again, if this is the first time you're joining me, my name is Mel. This is Team U Finance, where we talk about leveling up our money and having financial growth. In addition to these great accounts that they don't really tell you about that I think a lot of people or everyone should try to have, I also have an ebook that I wrote called 10 Steps to Level Up Your Money. Now, these are just that I personally wrote that I use and is still using to have financial growth. If you get a chance, the link is in the description. You can pick up a copy of the ebook and even see some tips that I use or that you can use to level up your money and build your wealth. All right, beautiful people. As I said, thank you so much. If you got this in my video, I do appreciate your time and your attention. Again, we want to open these accounts for growing our wealth. With that said, have a wonderful, wonderful day. I don't understand why a lot of us don't focus on ourselves one on one. And what I mean by focus on yourself is that you really start worrying about you. You worry about your needs, you worry about your wants, you worry about the things that you need. You stop worrying about everybody else. All right, first time you're joining me, my name is Mel. Welcome to Team U Finance. On this channel, we talk about leveling up. We talk about self-growth. We also talk about and we also speak about letting and, building our money. We talk about growing our wealth. All right, so a lot of us have talents that we fail to nurture. We fail to let them grow. Now, the exact reason why we do that, I don't know. I don't have any idea of doing this. I'm not literally nourishing my own talents because I was focused on different things or focused on people and basically not worrying about myself. But later in my life, I realized that that didn't benefit me no how, not to focus on me or my talents. So what I wanted to basically discuss is that you need to focus on the things that you're good at. And once you focus and you double down on what you can do, you can basically start making your money. All right. The first thing that I would advise anybody to do if they're trying to grow their wealth is to start, trying to capitalize on something that they're talented at. So, for example, let's say every year, your family has an annual barbecue. They call you to make the potato salad. They always ask you to make your famous mac and cheese. They ask you to do the ribs. Whatever it is they ask you to do. For years, it's been you doing it. It's been you, getting it together. But yet, for some strange reason, although you're making that, that treat or that meal or that dish every year, you've never thought of using it to make some capital. Question is, I don't know why. Well, here's what you're going to probably have to do. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, I'm just doing it for the fun of it. It's a family barbecue. It's an annual event. I don't want to charge anybody. Now, we're not saying, or I'm not saying that you should be charging people. You can't do anything out of the goodness of your heart. But you're so talented. And because you're so talented, you've proven it year and year after. Everybody's calling you and asking you, or they're calling and asking you to make that special dish that you make every year. Use that dish to start making some money, okay? And you might not use that dish to make any money because maybe you don't think that it'll sell. Maybe you don't feel like it's going to grow enough. Maybe you don't feel like anybody's going to buy it, whatever the case may be. But obviously, if you already have a fan base and everybody looks forward to that dish, I guarantee if you really start marketing that dish or marketing that you're a great cook and that you have a lot of talent, you will get customers. And I'll tell you something funny. Once you start marketing, or you start selling, you start cooking professionally, the people that called you every year and asked you to make those dishes or that dish, they're not going to support you. They're not going to buy from you. They're not going to give you any type of recognition. Only time that they called you was when they wanted to get you to work for them for free. Now, on the flip side of that, it was great that I asked you to make that mac and cheese or that wonderful dish every year because that gave you enough practice to develop your talent. Now that you develop your talent with those same people, why not use it to make yourself a little bit of money? First thing you're going to do is you're going to start maybe, booking some events. You're going to start advertising, letting other people know about the great food that you're going to start, building your social media accounts and so forth. And at the end of the day, if it takes off or when it takes off, you're going to officially register business, right? Because at the end of the day, we still got to, pay our taxes on the money that we make. But before getting into that and doing all of that, you first need to focus on the talent that you have. You need to nurture, okay? You need to nurture and stop wasting your time giving away your labor for free. Because at the end of the day, yes, we do things out of the goodness of our hearts, but we have been blessed to have a talent that can be exercised. Why not utilize it? Now, it doesn't matter what you do. And I'm not going to tell you in this video that to cook all day for someone. No, you don't have to cook. Whatever it is you're good at. If you're good at, working on the computers, all right, maybe, people need you or offices or buildings need you to come and service their computers for them. Why not do it? Put that talent into a developing business where you can make a little change with it on the side. And the best part about it is that you enjoy doing what you're doing, right? This is how we nurture and this is how we grow. We nurture and grow, and that we can use our talents to make money. Now, sometimes when we want to embark on different things, a lot of us are scared to, get new training. But in a case like this, you have to basically, you got to get your mind right. So, for example, again, if you are a person that's maybe in the tech industry, with the booming of AI right now, there's a lot of things that have changed technologically. But it doesn't mean because there's change, basically the world has changed, doesn't mean because there's change that you can't grow. So in other words, in order for you to embellish on your talents and, focus on what you can do, you probably have to retrain. You have to retrain. You have to go get new certifications. You have to do different things because remember, you want to keep yourself in the game. You want to be marketable. If you're not doing those things, you're going to get left behind. And this is where the frustration is going to come eventually. You're going to get frustrated and say, you know what, there's no need for me anymore. There's no use. And this is why everybody has to have some type of side hustle. Okay? What side hustle you have, whatever talent that you have, whatever you're good at, you need to start letting it work for you. Let it grow. Develop it into a little business where you can start making money. Right? Now, the next thing that we also need to do, we need to focus on just growth, period. And how do we focus on growth? We basically double down on the things that we're good at. We take the time to nourish the things that we're good at. And I guarantee, listen, when you start focusing and doubling down on what you're good at, you're not going to get any support. You're going to have to go out there. You're going to have to market your talent. You're going to have to market your product. Whatever it is that you're developing, you're going to have to get it elsewhere. Trust me, when success comes, those same family and friends, they will start supporting you at that point. Now, there's nothing wrong with getting advice from anyone. There's nothing wrong in letting, close family and friends know what you're doing. But I would advise anybody, whatever you're doing, don't spend all that time focusing on them for validation. You don't need a sea of approval from family and friends to nourish your talent and to grow. And hence, this is what it comes down to. Focus on yourself. Focus on things that you need to do to get better. When you're trying to focus on you, network. Start talking to people or go to places or go to events that have tools that you could use to grow your endeavors. Because again, it goes back to the old adage, people don't want to see you grow. They don't want to see you grow, especially if they're not growing. So because they're not growing, you shouldn't grow. Now, we're not going to sit and have that in the back of our minds about who's in our corner, who's not in our corner. We need to do that. But what we're going to do essentially is we're going to stop wasting our time, stop looking for validation from people that are not even focused on their own lives and their own problems. This is where you're going to get your stuff together and get your life together. Again, if this is the first time you're joining me, my name is Mel. This is Team New Finance, where we focus on building wealth, talk about leveling up, and we also focus on perspectives and things that could make our money grow for us. I also want to add that many times, when we have a certain talent, I think what it is, like, we were afraid. We were afraid of getting it out there. We were afraid maybe, that if you try to do something that it was going to be rejected, or we didn't have enough confidence in ourselves. And let me tell you something. The first thing in growing anything or letting anything grow is to have confidence. You gotta have some type of confidence. Once you have self-confidence, you know exactly who you are. You know what you're focused on. You know what you can do. There's no turning back at that point. All of the people that you see have money goes back to, the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, all those people that made their money. They didn't just get up one day and were instant millionaires. They had a lot of stumbling blocks. They had to start over. A lot of their ideas got tossed out. A lot of these people invested money into fly-by-night projects that didn't work. But the point is that they literally came back and they went, they got retrained, and they started over again. And that was the big, getting their talents out there, because they got rid of all the distractions and they started focusing on themselves. And this is exactly what we need to do. So again, we have to double down, basically look at our talents. Once we double down and look at our talents, what we're good at, we have to basically exercise those talents, start growing them, start networking, start marketing. And I guarantee that you're going to have success and you're going to have results. But the first focus that you need to look at, or the first thing that you need, or the first person to focus on, is you. Focused on you, nobody else is going to focus on you. All right. With that said, I have an ebook that I wrote. It's called 10 Money. The link is in the description. If you get a moment, it's a nice, easy read. These are some of the things that I did and is currently still doing to grow, my finances. After focusing myself, this is one of the few things that I did. And it's a broad range of talking about like 10 different things that you can do to kind of get your money in line or get your money in place. Yeah. Now, again, the ball's in your court. It's basically what you want to do to get your money going. All right. So with that said, as I said, people, focus on you, double down on your talent, make your money work for you. Don't waste your time getting validation from people or approval from people that have no idea or no interest in you. Because again, they're not even interested in their own selves. So if they're not interested in themselves, why are they going to be interested in you? Work with you, focus on you. And I guarantee once you start focusing on you and worrying about you, your needs and your wants first, life is going to get better. It's going to get different. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. With that said, beautiful people, if you got this far in my message, I thank you for your time. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. People often run into financial difficulties, and when they do, they come to you and ask you for help. The difficulties that I want to address today is when somebody needs a loan ASAP. They needed a loan yesterday. They need to get something done. They need to buy a car. They need to, buy a home. They need to clear up some bills. Whatever the case may be, they need a loan. So we needing the loan. They came to you. They're asking you to co-sign. No, never. Never, ever, ever, ever. Please say no. That is what I want to talk about today. Talk about 2 financial boundaries that everybody needs to set when it comes to their money. Right, the first one is obviously co-signing. Co-signing is when somebody comes to you and they need a loan and they say, hey, listen, because of my credit or situation, maybe I don't have enough money and they're not qualifying me. I need to put you on a loan with me. I need your help. They ask you to be a co-signer because number one, you have better credit, and number two, you might have a little bit more money than them. And basically, you're like an assurance for the loan. You're a backup for the loan. But that's something that you don't want to do. Co-signing becomes a straining point when it comes to the friendship. Now, here's how it goes with co-signing. If you tell them yes and you end up doing the co-signing for them, it's gonna be where you're now financially responsible for that loan or for making those payments. Let's say you know the person for years, you trust them. It could even be a family member, a relative. It could even be your significant other. Okay, they ask you to back them up by co-signing. Now you've co-signed and you've taken out this loan, this financial arrangement, this financial burden now. And let's say the person stops making the payments. Who do you think the creditor or that bank is gonna come after? It's gonna be you. First of all, they're gonna write you. They're gonna call you. They're gonna ask you why the payments aren't made. Banks is not gonna care if you say, "Listen, I'm the primary borrower. I'm only a co-borrower, co-signer." They're gonna say, "Listen, you took out that loan. Your social security number was ran, and you're just as responsible for that loan." That is what you do when you become a co-signer on a loan. You're basically telling that creditor or the bank that you are just as much responsible for the loan. Even if the person defaults, you're still responsible for the loan. Now, in the long run, that could actually ruin your financial situation or your credit. Story time. I knew a lady a few years ago. We lived in the same building together. I mean, I had decent credit at the time. I guess she thought maybe I was doing super well. I don't know. But again, at the time, I'm just trying to manage my money. She would often come and talk to me and vent and say, "Listen, we want to move out of here. My husband and I want to buy our first home." I'm like, "Great, wonderful, this is good." But she said there's one problem. She says we can't qualify for a mortgage. I said, "Well, why can't you? You got a job, he got a job. I assume your credit's decent if you're talking mortgage broker and a realtor." She said, "Yes, we can talk to the mortgage broker. We've spoken to the realtor. We even looked at several houses, but we can't qualify. We basically need a co-signer, another person to be on there, although my husband's name can go on the loan." So I had to ask because, I mean, you don't brought your business to me and you want me to help you to get into your business. So I'm going to ask you why. She said the reason why she was looking for a co-signer is because a few years ago, her husband had co-signed for a family member on another house, and this before they met. She said as a result, that person that her husband co-signed for is now in foreclosure. She was even crying. She was like, "This is horrible." She was like, "It's a very close family member. My husband was only trying to help, but the person later defaulted." And she said they defaulted because they lost their job and the whole 9 yards. And again, in life, things happen. And this is the reason why, maybe we feel bad for people, but at the same time, we got to think about the long run and the big picture. Like, if I do this for you today, is it going to, be beneficial to me in the end, or is it going to ruin me in the end financially? So going back, she said, the husband helped somebody and they basically, because of their foreclosure, ruined her husband's credit. Now their debt is the husband's debt. So as a result, when the banks, try to qualify them, do the numbers, he already has that old debt on his credit. Make a long story short, the gentleman cannot at this point co-sign with his wife, which was the friend that I knew. He could not co-sign with her, or he can't get on the loan with her because he already had that he's carrying from helping somebody to co-sign many years ago out of the goodness of his heart. And that brings me to my next point. Helping somebody, you're doing it because you're kind, because you're sweet, or because you're very caring. But at the end of the day, it comes back and it bites you in the butt. And that's what happened to that couple. Now, fast forward a little bit. She now wants me, or wanted me at the time. And again, this is many years. Like, she wanted me to help her to co-sign, help both of them to co-sign. Well, at the time, I'm living in my building. At that time, I'm not thinking of my home. But I mean, there's things that I still wanted to buy. The dream was, to get, a good car or whatever. And I knew that you had to have a decent credit score to qualify. And I thought about it, and I wanted to help her, and I wanted to do it. After carefully thinking about it, I had to decline. So I said, "I really want to help you, but I can't take the risk." And I even said to her, I said, "Well, look at it." I said, "Your husband did something so wonderful as helping, a relative as the coast, and look how they defaulted." She says, "Oh, we're not going to default." I said, "I don't believe that you would, because things happen. You willfully default. But I can't take a risk. Now, you might be ever happened to that friendship. I'll tell you what happened to the friendship. And this is what always happens when you tell people no, especially when they want you to co-sign. She basically stopped talking to me. She's dealing with me. She still said hello. She'd occasionally call me. Texting wasn't big back in those days. So, I mean, I can't say that she used to text me, but she kind of cut me off. She literally did. And when I say cut me off, it wasn't a fierce cut off. She would still speak to me every once in a while. If she's having a function, she'd invite me. But at this time, I knew that the friendship was already strained. And the only reason why the friendship was strained was because I did not co-sign for her. Okay. And at the end of the day, although I didn't co-sign for her, it kind of opened up a few, a few things for me. I saw a few things. Honestly, she wasn't really a friend. Because if you ask me to put myself in a financial situation that's going to maybe harm me in the end, just like harmed her and her husband, and because I said no, protecting my financial security, and you basically stopped talking to me, obviously you just wanted to use me. So you never want to get into a situation. The moral of the story is that you never want to get into a situation where you're a co-signer and you're taking on loans in your name to help people. It doesn't work out. It's not a good idea. I know some of you might say, well, Mel, it's my family member, it's my sibling, it's my children, it's my parents. I understand. And make your decisions at your own discretion. I would never tell you how to live or how to, deal or build relationships with your family financially. But all I'm simply saying is that co-signing is not something that we should get into a habit of doing. It doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, when you co-sign for somebody and you want to move on with your life and you want to start purchasing things and, as I always say, leveling up your money, when you have those bills on your credit report, your debt to income ratio is extremely high. When you go into the bank to qualify for something, or you go to buy a car, whatever it is, or even that mortgage that you want to get at finally when you're ready for that big purchase, the bank is going to tell you, you know, you have too much debt. And God forbid that they defaulted on the loan. So now you got that. Basically, if her husband hadn't co-signed for his relative, he would have exposure on his credit report. Now, how long that takes to come off, I don't really know. I'm not really sure. I'd have to do some research if I was interested in knowing about removing a foreclosure. But you get what I'm saying. It is just not a good idea, and it's not something wise to do. All they're gonna do is be mad at you. They're gonna be like, he or she's a hater. They're mean. They're terrible. They leveled up, but now I need a little help. They don't want me to grow. So wear the bad hat. Let them think bad things about you. It's okay. They'll get over it, or they'll stop talking to you, or they'll slightly talk to you, just as the lady I told you did. She slightly, talked to me after a while. She barely spoke to me, and all because I wouldn't co-sign. So that just goes to show you how people really are when it comes to money and finances. They always say money is the root of all evil. Um, I truly believe it is because sometimes when money is an issue, people have, been unalived for money. People have supposedly lost friendships they thought they were genuine because of money. People have gone through so many things because of money. So, again, you don't want to put yourself in situations, especially with that co-signing, where your life or even just your peace of mind is disturbed because of money. All right, the second boundary that I want to touch on quickly, and I've talked about it previously in my other videos, this whole idea of lending money. It's almost like the cosign. Well, the bank was going to lend you money, but you got to stop lending people money. My solution is that when somebody comes to you to borrow money, you got to assess and look and say, okay, why is this person, trying to borrow money from me? The whole idea of lending and borrowing is not good. If they have to keep coming to you to borrow, obviously they're not in a good financial situation. And before, when that borrower comes to you, you got to ask them, okay, if I loan you my money, how are you going to pay me back? What's your plan of action to pay me back my money? Loan you my money, how are you going to pay me back? What's your plan of action?
And with that said, people, I just don't believe in always borrowing money from people. I don't believe in lending. I believe it ruins friendships. So I just want you to just listen to me for a second and hear me out why I feel that we need to stop lending people money.
Hello, team. It's your girl Mel here from Team U Credit and Finance. And for today's video slash message, I want to talk about the art of lending and borrowing. Well, we don't really know if it's an art, but for today's message, I want to talk about the practical reasons why we should not be lending or borrowing money. Well, the
first question that I want to ask you is, have you ever gotten that text message or that phone call? And if it was a text message, it literally said, "Hey, can I borrow some money? I swear or I promise I'm going to pay you." And you look at the message, or if it's a phone call, even if they call you, you look at it or you listen to it, and your stomach literally sinks or your heart starts to beat because in your mind you're like, okay, what is it now? Didn't I just lend you last month? Do I have to be going through this again? When you're going to get it together? Those are some of the things that travel through your mind when that person's asking you for money. So I believe constantly borrowing or constantly asking or expecting people to give you money or lend you money, I believe that it's a very bad habit or very bad practice to be a part of or to meddle in. So I just want to talk about some practical ways that we can or stop lending people money. And on the other hand, I also want to address where you are not going to be the borrower either. All right. So, as usual, I list of the reasons why it's not good to lend or to borrow money. So, the first one that I want to talk about is the relationship killer. Whenever you lend someone money, you to borrow money from you. Let's say you and that person are friends, and I'm talking about just platonic friends. I don't even care if it's your significant other. And the person constantly keeps borrowing money from you. That already is the beginning of the end of the friendship. It's the beginning of the end of the friendship because you now become basically a prisoner. You're basically indebted to always help that person. If you help them one time and maybe they paid back the one time, help them two times, three times, it becomes constant. Now, it doesn't matter how well off you are, how good you're doing. Nobody likes it. Even a rich person, like somebody constantly keeps expecting them to give them money, or somebody constantly keeps borrowing money from them. Nobody likes it. And so that relationship, if it's your friend and your friend always keeps borrowing, it just seems like in that friendship that the only reason why you guys are friends is because of the money that you can provide for them. So it becomes a use situation. They're only using that friendship to basically get money from you. And this is the reason why it starts to kill the relationship. It becomes a relationship killer. And nobody likes that because when you think you're genuinely friends with someone, you want somebody to take you and genuinely care for you. You don't want the friendship just to be based on the money or the things that you can provide, the material things. But a lot of people would look at the friendship as just a way for them to get things from you. So that is the first way when you get into a habit of lending people money, it starts to kill that relationship or it starts to kill that friendship. All right, that's the first one. The next thing that happens when you lend people money, it starts to build resentment. And how it builds resentment because you, the creditor or the lender to your friend, whomever, you resent them for not paying you back. You become angry. The other side of the resentment is where the debtor or the borrower resents you because they know they have to give you the money back. And so as a result, everybody starts dancing around everybody. Everybody starts getting awkward. Nobody wants to pay back. Likewise, you, the lender, you don't want to ask because you ask is going to turn into a different story. They're either going to guilt you, or if they don't guilt you, they're going to make you wait forever. And what is ironic about this is that when you were lending them your money, you didn't let them wait. You instantly got that money. You wanted to be a good friend. You said, okay, you know what? I know you have a situation right now. I'm going to do what I can do for you. But what a lot of people need to realize is that when you jump around and you do things for people or you're there for people, a lot of people take your kindness for weakness. They look at it as you're being weak, or they think you're gullible, or they think you're quote unquote stupid because you're actually kind or you're mature and you're helpful. Because they know if they were in that situation, they would not be as open and kind to you. So, what I'm basically saying is that the resentment is built up because you want your money back and because they feel that they should have to pay you that money back. And it's really a sticky situation. Now, can you imagine if you had just known from the door? Sure, they might or would have been angry with you,
But you know what? Let's just let them be angry from the beginning. At least now you don't have to have that anxiety or that resentment deep down in your heart of trying to ask for your money back. Okay? So that's another way resentment builds up and you start to feel awkward when you start lending people money. All right. The next risk or the next thing that happens when you lend people money is that you basically become a bank. You become a bank, quote unquote, with no collateral. And the reason why you don't have any collateral is that you're lending the money to your friend. So you're not doing a contract, you're not doing a payment plan, you're not asking them to put it in writing because you're trusting and you're saying, you know what, it's my friend, it's somebody that I know, somebody that I'm close with. So I don't think the person is basically going to flake and not pay me my money back. In other words, you don't expect for your friend to be dishonest with you. But I can tell you that sometimes the people that end up robbing us is the people that are near and dear to us, the people that we love, the people that we trust, the people that we take as friends. And many a times it could also be family members or significant others. It doesn't matter. A scammer or a con artist is a scammer or a con artist. It doesn't really matter how you know them. All right. So you end up losing your money and you don't want to have to go through the process, especially if there's no contract written, the process of taking them to court, depending on the large sum of money. You lose your money, you don't have any collateral, and I can almost guarantee that you lose that friendship. But on the side of the friendship, my whole thing is that if that person was always borrowing and you genuinely loan that person money, or you try to bail them out of a situation and they don't give you your money back, they never counted you or regarded you as a friend in the first place. So, sometimes God has a way, or some people say the universe has a way of working things out. Maybe that friendship was only based on the money that you could provide for that person. So if it's a case where that friendship has to go sour, sometimes it's a better way to cut your losses. And the plus about cutting your losses is that you never have to loan that person money again. In my opinion, you could take it as a loss. You could take it as a loss of you always losing money and a gain of you not having to deal with somebody that's only using you when they want your money. So that's another thing that happens. You basically take a risk. You risk losing your money, you risk never getting it back because that person does not cooperate and they're not giving you back your money. All right. The next thing that you do when you're lending money that's actually detrimental to you is that you're helping that borrower or that debtor, you're helping them to develop bad habits. I personally believe that a person that constantly borrows money or always in need and always looking to get it from other people, to me, that's a bad habit. That's not a way to live. Everybody runs short. Everybody has bills. Everybody has indebtedness. They don't need to be sharing or spending their money with people every single month. But you have to understand that the person that's borrowing money from you, they don't really care about what your finance is and about the things that you have to do. As a result, this is the reason why they keep coming back and borrowing money. So you have to be strong and you have to say, okay, you know what? I'm not in the habit of lending money. And likewise, it's a flip situation. If you don't believe that you should be lending money, right, then likewise, you shouldn't be borrowing money from people either. And I can remember when I was growing up as a child, and I would always hear my mother say to me, she said, one day she said to me, she said, you know what? I don't lend and I don't borrow. I don't remember how we came across the situation, the story, but she literally explained to me that borrowing and lending is not something that we should do. So I always tell people the simple solution to this, because as I said before, everybody runs short. I've encouraged people time and time again, especially on this channel. And if you take a look at my other videos, go through the channel, I have a series on banking. And I always encourage people to develop relationships with their bank. I say develop a relationship with your bank if you are the borrower. If you find yourself is always in a jam and you need extra money or you need additional money, right? You make sure or you ensure that your credit is good, where you have a good credit rating. I encourage a relationship where your bank knows you, you're doing your transactions there, etc. And if you need any help, I encourage you to always go in your bank and ask your bank to borrow money. The reason why I see you should have a relationship or develop some type of relationship with the bank is because when you have a relationship with the bank and you develop a friendship or any type of money transactions, when I say relationship, I'm talking about like money transaction, that bank knows you. And if when you borrow that money from that bank, if they turn you down, nobody has to know. If they lend it to you, nobody has to know. In other words, you want to make a legitimate financial institution the place where you get money from, where they lend you money or you borrow money. So it's really a flip side to it. The bad part about it is that if you are the lender, if you're the creditor, you take a risk of not getting your money back. And if you're the borrower, that's been a situation where you need to borrow money from people constantly, you take a risk of being embarrassed, told no, and you know what? Whatever you wanted to pay for, because you couldn't get the money, you couldn't make the payment anyway. So they're catch 22. You're damn if you do, you're damn if you don't. My suggestion to anyone is this: try your best to be financially self-sufficient. Okay. I always encourage you, like I said, build your relationship with your bank. And the biggest part of it is put something away for a rainy day. I always encourage people, save your money. When you're run down and you're broke and you can easily go to yourself, I'm talking about literally, if you have like an account somewhere else, I always talk about those high yield savings accounts. If you have some money stashed somewhere else, you do not need to pick up the phone. You don't need to text nobody. You don't need to ask nobody no question. You don't have to say anything to anyone. You know who you're gonna call? You're gonna call yourself, aka your bank. You're gonna call yourself. You're gonna call the place where you literally stashed your money to borrow. And I'm talking about like little small emergencies. This is how the wise do it. This is how people do it. Everybody gets run down. Everybody has their little money issues here. But the big thing or the big takeaway from that is that those people that have their money issues or need to borrow, when they have saved their money and they have put away something, they don't have to worry about picking up the phone and asking people for money. That's exactly how you fix that situation. There is no reason for you to be at anybody's mercy. Now, I'll tell you one last thing before, finishing this video. But before I do, if this is the first time you're joining me, please comment, like, subscribe, and share. Yeah, check out the other videos on the channel where I talk about saving money. I talk about how to get financing if you're doing your business, if you're trying to buy a home, etc. In the market of just trying to level up and make your money grow for you, check out the other videos on the channel. All right. If this is the first time you're joining me, my name is Mel, and this is Team U Credit and Finance. But the big takeaway that I'm telling to everyone, if you are the lender, if you're the person that's always lending people money, please make it a habit to stop. Don't enable bad habits. Don't allow people to use you. Don't allow people to only want to be in friendships with you because of what you can provide for them and so forth. Do not be a money supply to people that genuinely don't care about you. Many times they hang with you just because they know that you can only provide something for them. That is the reason why. They don't like you, they don't care about you. You don't want to be just a source of money supply for people. If you are the borrower in this situation, because I said this video is about lending and borrowing, I think it's something that both parties, both sides need to really put a lid on. If you are the borrower, get into the habit of being self-sufficient. Get into the habit of having your own. Get into the habit of not depending on people. And the first way that you get into the habit of not depending on people is to basically pay yourself first. Take out something for you. Ensure that you have what you need. Okay? See, a lot of people, especially if you're the borrower, when you pick up the phone and you call people, you text people and try to get money from people, they're going to listen to you. But you have to understand that when they're listening to you, they're not listening out of genuine care or genuine interest. In other words, those people have no type of empathy towards your situation. They don't care. As I said in a lot of my prior videos, they just listen to listen. They just listen to basically make fun of you, to know where your weak points are. And at this stage in your life, I would think that, we're not going to allow anybody to put us down. We're not going to allow anybody's mercy. So that's why I always say level up your money. Get out of the habit of lending money if you're lending, and get out of the habit of borrowing money. It's a lose-lose situation. There is no benefit for anyone. All right? So, drop me a comment. I'm going to put a comment here, and I want to ask, if you're the lender, can you tell me a time where you've loaned your money, to someone? Were you successful in getting your money back? Are you still lending people money? If you're the borrower, let me know If you stop borrowing, have you become more self sufficient? Are things working out a little bit better for you? And as a result, are you more financially empowered? Do you feel a lot better about the way your financial situation is now? Have you grown? All right. Whatever the situation is, please ensure that you're taking a stepping stone, you're taking a stand to say, listen, you know what? Enough is enough. New beginning. Right? I'd also like to tell people, I said, if you are even in a situation where you have to borrow all the time, you feel like you're not making as much as you need to make, empower yourself, level up yourself, change your career, try to have different growth, try to get something different that's going to pay you more. In other words, take another step. If you have to go retrain and get a different career so you can have a little bit of money, then you retrain. You do it, whatever you have to do to make it a little bit easier and a little bit better for you to get your money. Get your money. All right? About what you need to do so you can get to that next level. And with that said, people, I thank you so much. As I said, if this if this video resonates with you, please comment, like, subscribe, share. And I thank you for your time. Have a wonderful. Hey, beautiful people. It's your girl Mel here from Team U Finance. And today I want to talk about advice, money advice. First thing before we get in, I want to say thank you to everyone that's been supporting the channel so far. I really do appreciate it. We're growing. The word's getting out there, and the numbers are looking good. So I thank everyone again that has subscribed so far, and has also bought me my first 2 cups of coffee. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the support. So let's get right into it. Now, yes, I had this channel, and I talk about money, and I put things up, and I mentions on how to make money, but I'm not directly targeting anybody specifically and saying, okay, this is what you have to do with your money. These are just tips, things that I've researched, things that I know in my own personal life, and some little, suggestions on how to level up and make our money work for us. Because again, at the end of the day, everybody could always use a little extra money. Sometimes a person might come to you and they might say, hey, listen, I'm broke, I'm down and out. Can I get a little money? Can you loan me some money? Can you help me out? No worries, no issue, no problem. It only is an issue when the person keeps coming back constantly, day in and day out. So if the person keeps coming back day in and day out, you say to them, listen, okay, I'm going to try to teach you how to make some money, or to let your money grow for you, or to change things for you. Listen, they can come and borrow from you 15 times. You can make them 20 loans. You can give them your life savings. They don't want no advice from you. They don't want to hear about anything that you have to say about how they could make the money. Because money is a very personal issue for people. It's personal. People, although they might come to you and say to you to help them financially, they don't want you to tell them how to make money. They don't want you to tell them how to grow money. They don't want you to tell them, how to invest their money. People take it personal. People get offended by stuff like that. So, for example, the whole idea of money goes, with culture and your upbringing. Now, in everybody's household, money is different. Maybe one family taught their kid or their kids that they needed to save. Another family taught their kids, listen, put your money under your mattress. Another family said, take your money to the bank. Another family said, share your money. Everybody's upbringing is different. So as a result, as we grow into adults and we really start to handle or have a use for money, the way we think stems from our childhood, right? So now I'm an adult, I'm having a little money issue, for example, and now I'm going to come to you, you're going to try to teach me and tell me about money. Number one, people think that you're judging them when you tell them about money. They look down on them. They think you think you're better than them. Because how dare you, after they came to you, how dare you try to teach them what you know or give them some type of advice? People don't want to hear that. Let's talk about when, they think you're judging them. Number one, if you've been blessed to be in a very good financial position, you're making great money. You're making how many figures in corporate America wherever you work. And somebody comes and says, listen, can you lend me some money? You try to say to them, listen, you know what? I built a career. This is what I did. Why don't you try doing the same thing? Oh, no. You are highly offended because you're judging them. They're thinking in their mind that you're judging the fact that they never attained a career. They think you're judging their background. They think you're judging their family life. They think you're judging them from where they come from. They don't want to hear stuff like that. People do not want your advice, and they do not want to be judged. Now, on the other hand, if you come to me personally, if you're always coming to me for money and everything like that, and I've made suggestions to you, and you're going to be offended by what I say, I'm not going to waste my time with you. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to say, listen, I don't know what's going on with you, and you've come to me multiple times, and I've helped you, and God has blessed me to help you. But at the same time, I'm going to try to do a few things. I'm going to split my blessings with you, and I'm going to teach you a few things. And if you seem like the person where you don't want to listen, you're not interested because you got some type of thinking in your mind, or you have some type of notion in your mind that I'm judging you, then I'm not going to waste my time with you because obviously you don't want to learn and you don't want to grow. Okay, that's how I look at it. But on the other hand, I'm not going to keep giving you unsolicited advice that you don't want because you're taking it personal. Okay. The other aspect of it, when you give people unsolicited advice, is in their mind they think that you, the individual, thinks you're better than them. Now I don't know what a person think that I think, or maybe you think you're better than them. But again, this has to do with the whole mental issue. That's to do with the whole self-esteem issue. Money is a personal issue for people. Money is a personal thing. When you meet a person, one of the first questions that you ask a person is, "Oh, hi, I'm so and so. What do you do for a living?" Because people judge you based on what you do. People judge you on the type of job that you have. If you tell somebody when you first meet them, say, "Hey, listen, maybe I work at a certain restaurant chain and I do certain things at that restaurant," as opposed to you saying, I'm the general manager at that restaurant, or I'm an administrator in a company, or I'm the chief financial officer. Guarantee that they judge you and look differently at the person that just has the general basic job in the restaurant than the high paying or the higher stature job. People judge you based on money. So if somebody's in a position where they're not making that high paying job and they come to you and they say, and you judge them and you belittle, you make them feel funny, I guarantee that they're not going to want to come back again. And they're going to feel some type, you're going to make the person feel small. You don't need to be giving anybody any money or financial advice. Okay? If a person comes to you and they say to you, "Listen, can you help me?" You feel that they're being, or you feel like you're going to belittle them, just simply say, "Advice." And I'm talking about like people that you know personally. I'm not talking about, being on social media or on a YouTube channel. I'm talking about like somebody that you personally. When you give that person advice, let's say, for example, you give the person advice, you say, "Hey, listen, you know, I like investing. I'm big on the stock market. I'm big in this type of market. And I believe that you should buy these stocks to try to make a few dollars." Okay. So they taking your role model, you're leveling up or you leveled up, and they look at you great. They want to be where you need to be. Person buys a stock. Maybe a year from now, God forbid, stock goes down. Who they gonna come and blame? They're gonna blame you. They're gonna blame you. They're gonna say, "You know what? You were the one that advised me to do this." And this is the reason why, as much as I'll, put these videos out and I'll say certain things on this channel, I have a disclaimer up that says I am not a financial advisor. I don't, I'm not a CPA. These things that I talk about or I give advice is things that I've experienced in my own personal life in terms of money. These are things that I've worked on, these things that I've done. And these are topics that I've researched to talk about. But in no way am I giving you financial advice to do things. So what I was basically saying with the stock is this: God forbid if that stock or that investment you told a person to pick up didn't go well, they're going to blame you. Okay. Another example, let's say, for example, you told a person, "Oh, you know what? You're buying a house and, buy it in this neighborhood, and, buy it here or, or live here." What if when you buy the house or you take their advice or you give unsolicited advice and they end up in the neighborhood and God forbid they hate the neighborhood. They hate the neighborhood. They hate the streets. They hate the school system. Every single thing that they hate. Who are they going to come back and blame? They're going to blame you for giving them personal advice on their finances that they necessarily didn't want. Again, people, like, comment, subscribe, and share if you're enjoying the content. So if any of this resonates with you or you can relate, please like, subscribe, and share. Really appreciate it. So they're going to blame you when you're giving them personal advice on their finances. Remember, money is a personal issue for people. Money is personal. People judge you based on the type of money that you make. People judge you based on your zip code, where you live. People judge you based on your car. People judge you based on your job. People judge you based on so many things. But in the case of this video, we're talking about actually giving advice to people. We're talking about giving advice to people about money. People don't want you in their personal finances. Not because they come and they say, "Hey, listen, I need help. Can you give me a helping hand?" A helping hand is money. A helping helping hand is not advice. A helping hand is money. Is money, money. Is something that they want immediately. That's a helping hand. A helping hand is not you saying, hey, take a course, take this Series 6 license course, or take this, this real estate course, or take this this type of go to this type of conference to learn how to make money. They don't want to hear that, right? If you do come across the people that are willing to take personal advice about money or anything for that matter and are willing to listen, then of course go ahead, give, freely talk, because the first line in us understanding how to work and deal with money is by having wisdom. Wisdom is the key to everything. When you have the wisdom and you understand how money works or how certain things work or how you can grow financially, you will listen. You will listen. You can listen to people that are giving you advice. It doesn't mean that every single thing that somebody tells you that you're going to jump ahead and do it, because obviously you have the wisdom and the knowledge. And hey, listen, what they're saying doesn't make any sense. But not giving unsolicited advice to anyone. Okay. I would even say that even if a person asks me and they think I'm doing so well and they ask me, for example, for advice, I would say, hey, listen, as a disclaimer, I'm not whatever I've personally done to make my money. I don't know if you'd be interested. And let me tell you something, 9 times out of 10, you could be the biggest entrepreneur. You could be making most money. These people don't care how you got to that money. They don't care how you made the money. They don't care how you're making the money right now. They don't care how you're going to continue making the money. They just want to be able to get some of that money to satisfy a need or cover an expense that they have. So somebody coming to you in a time of need and asking you for help is not a gateway. It's not an open forum for you to start giving advice. If you feel that you need to give them advice before, all you got to do is simply tell them, say, look, I'm not really up for that. I don't lend, I don't borrow, I'm not giving anything away. Trust you me, they'll get the hint that you're not into lending or giving money, and you're not into giving financial advice to anyone. I think on the journey of finance, people have to educate themselves. They have to try to learn on their own. Everybody has made money mistakes. Yes, I made quite a few. And because I made quite a few, I in turn use it to, I'm still growing. I feel that I'm blessed in my life. I feel that I'm living somewhat decent, but at the same time, I don't need to advise anybody or try to tell anybody how to live their money. When you do that, you're just opening up a can of worms. And again, you're opening a can of worms for people to start resenting you and probably feeling or thinking that you think you're better than them. And we're not up for that. We just want everybody to grow. We want people to get wisdom. We want people to share the wealth. We want to keep our knowledge growing. We want to do every single thing that we can to level up our money. That's the point of us doing the things that we do. And with that said, beautiful people, again, if you like the content, if you believe it resonates with you or somebody that you know, please comment, like, subscribe, and share. Really appreciate it. I read all the comments. I enjoy, listening and talking to people about money. Money is my passion. All right. People, I appreciate everybody that got this far in my message so far. You have a wonderful day.
Brown Smart IPL. Geniet 2 jaar lang van een haarvrije huid.
Kindness goes a long way, but